Max Verstappen in the middle. Behind them comes Roman Grosjean. Behind his teammate Kevin Magnussen. Hulkenberg started well. Daniel Ricciardo has had an absolute shocker in his home Grand Prix.
So there's a Renault front wing missing. They didn't even get past the end of the pit lane before one of these new wide front wings went on the missing list.
I think Daniel Ricciardo was squeezed a bit by Sergio Perez. You can see Perez ahead of his Racing Point teammate Lance Stroll, but it's Valtteri Bottas in the lead, ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel in third. From Verstappen, Leclerc, Magnussen, Grosjean, Hulkenberg, Raikkonen and Lando Norris completing the top 10. Now, on the far side of the lake they go into the fast chicane of 11 and 12. Bottas, what a brilliant start for him.
There's a lot of debris on the pit straight. I wonder if they'll get a chance to clean it away. They've got about 85 seconds to get rid of any debris on pit straight at the moment. There's no sign yet of a safety car. In fact, we've now got the green flag, so the track is clear.
Riding on board with Sebastian Vettel, starting third here for the second time. He won from third last year, of course. He's got some making up to do in that Ferrari as the two Mercedes power on down the main straight, and the gap between Bottas and Hamilton at the end of lap 1, exactly 1 second. There is a fair amount of dust and grass on that main straight as Ricciardo went onto the grass when he was squeezed a bit. No one touched him, he was just squeezed. Lando Norris has a look Carlos Sainz has a look at Lance Stroll. Robert Kubica right at the back for Williams.
So Bottas making the best of that start to lead the Mercedes duo very nicely indeed, and Red Bull and the two Ferraris there keeping close company. Bottas then, remember at the end of the second lap the DRS opens, more powerful this year, drag reduction system. You'll see the rear wing open massively, and if you're more than 1 second ahead of the driver behind you, you're in the safe zone. He can't open his DRS. And at the moment, Bottas was a second ahead at the end of the first lap.
So Ricciardo pitting early and going onto the white stripe hard tyre to try and run towards the end of the race. Let's have a little look at his start, riding on board as he tries to make a move past Perez, gets onto the grass, and that I think is where he lost his front wing. It just got a bit too bumpy, and he did very well to keep out of everyone's way going into turn 1.
I saw him sailing in there. I had a feeling he was going to take Lando Norris with him. But I think Daniel will be a little bit shocked at that because, it wasn't really a touch and he was only just off the road, but there's a little piece of service tarmac in there. There's literally ripped his front wing off.
So for 4 times out of the last 8 years here at Albert Park, the pole sitter has failed to lead the first lap. Lewis Hamilton on pole for the 4th time, pole for the 4th time in the last 7 attempts, is not leading either. 6 consecutive poles for him. DRS is now enabled. He's got to get within 1 second of his teammate to use that DRS. He's not within it at the moment, but Sebastian Vettel is a second behind Hamilton in 3rd place.
Yes, that's almost Vettel and Hamilton-esque, isn't it? The Bottas has done there. Get up and running and get more than a second into the lead. Hamilton will be wanting to redress that immediately.
So looking at who's made a good start, Alex Albon from 13th up to 11th. Nico Hulkenberg started 11th up to 8th. Lando Norris, sadly for him, dropping down a couple of places right at the start. Giovinazzi lost places as well. Gasly's up 1 place into 16th. That's because Daniel Ricciardo had to pit, running plumb last behind Robert Kubica in the Williams. And we're on board with Pierre Gasly down in 16th place, chasing the former Red Bull driver Danny Kvyat.
And Kubica pitted at the end of the first lap to get rid of those hard tyres, the only man on hard tyres, suggesting he's hoping to do the entire race on 1 set of tyres now that his mandatory pit stop and change of tyre is out of the way.
Daniel, so we have some damage on the right-hand side as well on the barge board, so there might be some load loss.
Understood. Daniel Ricciardo twice retired from his home Grand Prix, once was disqualified from his home Grand Prix, and his woes at his home Grand Prix are continuing onwards as Alain Prost, the special advisor at Renault, looks on. And it has to be said, the woes of Williams becoming apparent as well. Ricciardo's made a pit stop and he's already right on the wing, the rear wing of Robert Kubica. Fastest lap for Valtteri Bottas. If you look at your timing screen on the left-hand side, there's a little purple clock that says that Bottas has got the fastest time, and he'll get an extra point at the end of the race if he manages to hold on to it. Wherever you are in the top 10, if you've got the fastest lap, the extra point is yours. And we're watching Nico Hulkenberg chasing Roman Grosjean at the moment, Renault and Haas in a very, very tight midfield pack. Haas think they've got a very fast car. Kevin Magnussen says he can't believe other people's cars are that much faster because he felt so quick out on the track in qualifying. Well, we'll see in the race pace just what the Haas is like.
Indeed, so Raikkonen got ahead of Norris somewhere in the first lap as well. We'll get a replay presumably at some point. And at the moment, they're all holding station, so 10 seconds, 10.8 seconds covers the top 10 from Bottas to Norris.
And we can head down to the pit lane for the first time in this race. Good afternoon, Karun Chandok.
Good afternoon, Crofty. Dramatic start there for home hero Daniel Ricciardo. He's come on the radio to say, yep, he can feel a downforce loss. Fortunately, the steering seems okay. They were a little bit concerned. They asked him across the radio, but he's come back saying it's all square. Martin, just points out one more thing, the race pace at the moment, with that heavy tank of fuel 9 seconds away from what they did in qualifying. They're just managing their pace.
Thanks ever so much, Karun. We can see what happened with Ricciardo there. I wonder if there was a gutter on that side of the track that he might just have hit. Look how well he did, Martin, to slow that car down without a front wing.
Yeah, and we could see in front of him that's where Raikkonen got ahead of Norris. Norris pretty sensible down into the first corner, but Ricciardo there just, you can see where the service road is. The grass is quite high. He's a little bit unlucky, but at the same time, yeah, he's very unlucky with that because he's barely off the road, is he? He's barely off the road. So I think he'll feel that luck was not with him in that one.
Meanwhile, out in front, this is Lewis Hamilton. Didn't get away too badly, you feel, but Bottas, that was a lightning start.
Rocket, wasn't it? I mean, Lewis's start seemed absolutely spot on. No wheel spin, but Valtteri hooked it up, and it's usually that second phase, getting up into second and third. They're only allowed one gear shift in the first 50 miles an hour, 80 kilometres.
Charles Leclerc reacted quickly, and probably more quickly than his teammate Sebastian Vettel. Then gets a bit squeezed, doesn't he, going through turn 2?
Well, he could have lost a front wing there and punctured his teammate's left rear tyre for good measure in a heartbeat.
Do you think he'd have been a little more cavalier, shall we say, a little more muscly if that wasn't his teammate alongside him?
I don't think he had too many places to go, but it's a legitimate move around the outside there. There's nothing wrong with it, but that was a close one for Ferrari there.
And that was Robert Kubica, George Russell, I should say, running over that front wing of Danny Ricciardo's. They're not meant to fly, those wings. They're meant to keep the car on the ground, to be fair. The two racing points, Perez and Stroll, not much to choose between those two, running down in 12th and 13th at the moment. Carlos Sainz and Danny Kvyat behind them in 14th and 15th. I think that was Robert Kubica actually running over. The graphic said George Russell, but it would have been Kubica, I think, that was in that part of the track. So
Bottas is maintaining that 1.5 second lead. Hamilton can't get the DRS open, which is so much more powerful this year. Whether it generates some overtaking remains to be seen. But we're in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment as they just find out what they've got. Something Lando Norris said to me on the grid is there's a lot of support races here. You know, from Thursday morning till Sunday evening, if you walk across the track here, you'll probably be run over by something. There's always something going on, which is great for the fans. But the supercars, Aussie V8s tend to trade there. They pull up the Formula 1 rubber, put down their own rubber, all of the support races and vehicles going round. So I think they're all just finding out what they've got underneath them.
So Martin and I have got timing screens, we've got monitors, we've got information, but we've only got two pairs of eyes. And looking out at the rest of the field that sometimes we can't see the incidents, Paul di Resta is at Sky Race Control with us today. Paul.
Yeah, just to cover up Kubica, Crofty, why he stopped on that one as well. He lost his front wing at turn 1, tagging the back of Pierre Gasly's rear right, and then obviously had to make the pit stop, and that's why he was very much in sync with what Ricciardo did, because he lost his front wing as well.
Thanks, Paul. We didn't see that at the time, but really well done for picking that one up for us.
Yeah, it may have been when he some damage as well when he hit the other front wing. So a fairly troublesome start then for Kubica's return after 8 years, and Danny Ricciardo in front of his home crowd. And there must be an awful lot of Red Bull T-shirts piled up somewhere, because all the Aussie fans seem to be, well, not all, that's not fair for me to say, but a lot of Aussie fans are now dressed in yellow and black.
They certainly are. They like a touch of the Australian gold in this part of the world, but it's very much the yellow of Renault as we ride on board with Pierre Gasly. Now, this season, we think DRS is going to be very effective, and there are 3 DRS zones here. There'll be 3 DRS zones in Bahrain at the next race as well. There'll be one on the run-up to the hairpin at turn 4. But here at Albert Park, as effective as DRS is, Martin, it's not an easy place to still make a pass. And we've got a bit of a train running here of DRS-assisted cars, and Stroll in 13th, down towards Pierre Gasly in 16th, of which Carlos Sainz is part of that train. And his CEO, Zach Brown, is with us on the pit wall. Zach, good afternoon. Give us an update on your two drivers so far.
Well, as you saw, Lando dropped a couple spots at the start, and Carlos had a good start. They're settling in, doing a little tire management. We're just working through strategy on how we can maybe make a couple passes here.
It looked, you must have been wincing. It looked to me like without his front wing, it looked like Ricciardo was heading straight to T-bone Lando into the first corner.
Yeah, that was a close. That was definitely a close call, but Lando got through cleanly. I think Carlos had a little bit of a touch, but both cars look to be running fine right now.
As for Carlos, down in 14th, he's rather stuck behind Lance Stroll at the moment. Strategy is going to have to come into play soon. Is it the thoughts of an early pit stop, maybe, Zach?
Well, that's some of the conversation we're having on the pit wall right now is how do we play this? And he's getting pressured from Kvyat, so trying to conserve tires and see how this might play out. Also, Stroll's on a harder set of tires.
We often play a game, Zach. It's called What Would You Do? Christian Horner and Martin Brundle love that one. What would you like to do? Come in early or be in it for the long haul here?
Well, I think we need to see a little bit of how others play out, but ultimately running in a train isn't good long term. So if someone doesn't make a move soon, we should consider that ourselves.
Thanks ever so much indeed, Zach. We'll be with you in a little while. And that's the thing, Martin. As long as these DRS trains, as it were, continue, someone's going to think to themselves that we need to trigger an early pit stop here, and that might start the dominoes toppling a little bit.
We'll see, they've got to get a bit further yet before they want to think about parting company. Of course, these tyres of the top 10 have done qualifying as well for good measure. But it's interesting that Lewis is backing off from his teammate Valtteri Bottas to an extent. I mean, he's lost 0.6 last time around. The gap is gaining now. Is he in a bit of management? Does he think he'll get some payback later on? But they're also comfortably dropping the two Ferraris.
This was exactly the sort of start that Valtteri Bottas would have wanted for this season, of course, as Charles Leclerc turns a very expensive Ferrari into a very expensive grass cutter. That's not the way you want to be going too often, and Leclerc losing touch with Max Verstappen on this particular lap, and Kevin Magnussen might get a little keener behind the Ferrari if he keeps doing that.
That's exactly the kind of mistakes you cannot make in a front-running team. You just not, unforced error, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
Running by himself, he was 5 seconds ahead of Magnussen at the time. So Charles Leclerc, they're losing 3 seconds, but crucially, probably putting some grass in his side pods, in his cooling ducts. Now, they're designed to try to ship that out of the way, but it's still a bit of a risk, especially on a hot day.
Carlos Sainz chasing Lance Stroll in 14th place at the moment. I'm going to talk about Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, for the disappointment of last season, he's come back, he says, stronger mentally and physically as well for this year. And if he is to take the fight to his teammate, well, this is exactly what he needed at the start of the first race.
Bottas has got nothing to lose now. He knows he'll be replaced at the end of the year if he doesn't deliver championship kind of pace and consistency. And in his garage is Esteban Ocon. It's a travesty that Ocon's not on the grid.
Correct.
But he's the reserve driver, and he is there looking and listening at all times.
Leclerc's got problems. Charles Leclerc has got problems out there, and he is down at the moment from running in 5th place to running plumb last, and I wonder if he's going to be coming into the pits or whether he's actually got a problem with his transponder. I'm looking at the timing screens, and at the moment it says Leclerc. Well, he said he was running 18th. Forget that, don't worry. Rest easy, Ferrari fans. He's back up to 5th again.
Yeah, on the driver tracker, he's out there. Obviously a lot closer to Magnussen, Grosjean and co after his little excursion across the grass. So, yeah, he just dropped out of a transponder, didn't he?
That just got me a little bit worried for Charles Leclerc there. The man from Monaco celebrated his promotion to Ferrari by being able to afford to buy himself a place in Monaco and moving out of his parents' flat. If they have flats in Monaco, it's probably luxury apartments. I don't know, I've never got close to living there, quite frankly. We're on lap 11 of the Australian Grand Prix. It's a beautiful day here in Melbourne. Absolute perfect conditions for racing. Little breeze coming in off the sea, blowing across the track, and the track temperature 42 degrees, just coming down a touch, which will help people. And a puff of smoke there from Carlos Sainz going through turn 13, and I think there's a fire at the back of Carlos Sainz's McLaren. He's pulling into the pit lane. There are flames, and there's a bit more smoke, and this is the first retirement of the Australian Grand Prix, and it's Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. It's a warm day, but that McLaren and the Renault engine overheating, and Sainz needs to get out of that car, and the marshals will be sprinting towards him with some fire extinguishers. But that is not only massive disappointment for Carlos Sainz on his McLaren debut, but worrying signs as well for Renault after all their problems last year in the engine department. The Renault-powered McLaren has gone up in smoke and retired from this race.
Yeah, it looks some thick old smoke as well, doesn't it? And you can see the paint crinkling on the engine cover. They're coming in to sort it out. So a fairly fundamental failure inside that McLaren.
Before today, he had a 100% point scoring record in 4 starts here, did Carlos Sainz, and that has gone up in flames with the rear end of his car. That's massive disappointment for Carlos Sainz. McLaren, after their troubles of recent years, was starting to smile a little bit after Lando Norris's performance. And yes, Carlos Sainz didn't get out of Q1, but the hope was that they could get him a little further up the field in the race. What a shame for the crew and for the young Spaniard as well. He's managed to pull it over, Martin, to a fairly safe place there. It's a long pit lane entrance because of the supercar paddock, of course, but at least they can either leave it there or can move it to one side when it cools down a little bit.
Yeah,
that's where we first saw the puff of smoke.
In your mind, and you're trained to park it somewhere near a fire marshal, and he's gone in the pit lane hoping they might be able to sort something out, and then had a sensible pill and got it out of the way.
Low forward. Copy, Carlos, we're on it. Stop the car.
Obviously things get very, very hot at the back. Well done to the fire marshals for getting there as soon as they possibly can. Oh dear. Now, meanwhile, out in front, Valtteri Bottas was setting the fastest laps for the first 10 laps of this race. Lewis Hamilton on lap 11 outpaced his teammate for the first time in the race. Let's head down to Karun.
Yeah, that's right, Crofty. Valtteri Bottas he's had a bit of chat with his engineer saying they might extend this first stint. The car feels very good at the moment. He says it's all under control. He's happy with his pace. But as you say, Lewis is now starting to up his pace. I think to Martin's point earlier, maybe just preferred running in clean air just to keep the tyres from being damaged from running too closely behind his teammate.
Bottas sets a new fastest lap of the race as you talk as well. They're Karim only a 1/10 of a second between the two Mercedes drivers, and they're coming out in the pits for Kimi Raikkonen. Back at the team he started his Formula One career with, now called Alfa Romeo. So this might trigger a few others to follow.
Yeah, we're into undercut territory now. Get in early and use the new tyre and gain and get track position, then manage it later on. You'll see that the tyres are shiny this year. They've got a new chrome mould with a different releasing age when they manufactured the tyres, and that's why when they're brand spanking new, they very satisfyingly look shiny. I'm not sure how satisfying that'll be on a cold, wet day, mind you, when you come out of the pits.
The compounds themselves, soft, medium and hard, are also a little harder than last year, and then the PSI has gone up a little bit as well. And as a result, Martin, some of the teams saying that there could be warm-up issues in the tyres on that first lap, that outlap out of the pits, and they wonder how that might affect the undercut for this year.
We're about to find out. He's had a difficult weekend, hasn't he?
He certainly has.
Carlos.
The undercut, by the way, being when you want to leapfrog the guy in front of you, so you stop first, get some fresh tyres on, and hope that your pace, by the time the team in front reacts, is enough to clear them without the need for an overtake and make up a place through the pit stops. New fastest lap of the race, it goes to Lewis Hamilton. As I said, maybe starting to up his pace a little bit, but only by a hundredth of a second ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. And into the pits now comes the Renault of Nico Hülkenberg. We can talk to Zach Brown on the McLaren pit wall. Zach, you know, massive bad luck for you, the team, and for Carlos Sainz. Exactly what was the issue, do you know?
Early reports looks like it was the MG UK. Not exactly sure why it failed. We didn't get much notice, but that's the early appearance.
Motor generator, kinetic, basically.
Yeah.
The Kurz battery there.
Been a
Zach's
problem,
talking about.
been a problem for Renault over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
MG UK issues. So just the one car to concentrate on now. Zach, it's Lando Norris up to 8th place after a couple of pit stops. Are you guys getting ready in the garage?
Yep, I don't think it's going to be too long before we're in, so let's see how things play out here.
Thanks ever so much indeed. We'll be back with Zach in a little while. MG UK issues potentially there for Renault and for McLaren. Sergio Perez has also pitted for Racing Point, back out in 17th place. Hülkenberg back on the track in 14th, and they're making a pit stop at Ferrari as well.
Box, Sebastian, box.
So Sebastian Vettel was about 4 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Ferrari coming in early. Karun.
Yeah, indeed, Ferrari trying to do the undercut. Think back to 2 years ago when they tried the overcut, and that worked for them. Not today. Nice clean pit stop, by the way. Vettel on his way, as you say, on a set of the medium tyres. By the way, Nico Hülkenberg has also been in that time. He's on the hard tyre.
Which Renault obviously think can go right to the end. They made a habit last year, Martin, didn't they, of running the harder compound for that particular weekend. There's Kevin Magnussen coming into the pits as well. And Kimi Räikkönen's early stop for Sauber has triggered a bit of a reaction. And there is Nico Hülkenberg still behind Kevin Magnussen. You can see there why the Haas team brought Kevin Magnussen in. Had they left it any later, then Hülkenberg would have been clear. And he might be trying for an overtake now. Go around the outside of Kevin Magnussen. No love lost between these two, and he's onto the dirt. Nico Hülkenberg as Magnussen defends his place, and Hülkenberg attacks him with all his might.
Yeah, he was always going to be run out of road, and it's fair enough if you've got the racing line and you're on the inside there. But Nico had to try, Hülkenberg had to try. You'll see the vortices. Looks like smoke coming off the rear wings. Got a replay, and he's later on the brakes, but then Magnussen just lifts off the brake pressure a little bit and cuts him off. Right, down to Karun, Lewis Hamilton for his pit stop.
Yeah, interesting call there, guys, isn't it? They've given the guy in second place the first call on the pit stop. However, I think that was to counter Vettel. A super clean stop there for Lewis Hamilton, and Mercedes out. Back on track, so he's going to be still well clear of Sebastian Vettel.
Valtteri Bottas setting a new fastest lap, feeling good about his tyres, wants to extend that stint, and that side of the garage thinking that it's better to stay out than to come in, as now Romain Grosjean makes his pit stop, and they're all pitting, Martin, a little earlier than the teams have predicted.
Something slow here, isn't it? Something's horribly slow on this pit stop. Left front won't go on, not another pit stop drama for Haas in Australia. Oh no.
And that is going to cost Romain Grosjean, because look, Magnussen goes through, and also Hülkenberg, and also Räikkönen as well, and there's Lando Norris ahead of Romain Grosjean, who's lost places here, and that's Alex Albon getting very close through turn 1. The Toro Rosso might get a very good getaway now out of turn 2. Remember those warm-up issues we were talking about? Albon's going to go wheel-to-wheel with Grosjean now, who's got the inside line. Albon tries around the outside. Real brave move there from the young Thai driver, but Grosjean manages to hang on to 14th place.
So that pit stop incredibly costly there for Romain Grosjean and the Haas team. And yeah, now we're seeing the action as Hamilton, I think, had to defend against Vettel more than anything else. So we'll see when they choose to bring Bottas in. He was talking about how comfortable he was with the tyres, and look how close. So he had to go around some mechanics in the previous garage. He's gone a little bit long and left in his pit box there as Romain Grosjean, but for some reason the left front didn't seem to want to go on properly.
Norris, Lando Norris was having his tyres changed, which is why the crew were out.
Yeah.
The McLaren crew there.
Pretty tight pit lane here, isn't it?
Very, very tight indeed, and the teams have to watch out for that a little bit. I'm sure if they could have avoided it, they wouldn't have wanted to stop Grosjean at that particular moment, but they had to, because Hulkenberg and Magnussen were right there in the thick of it, as we see Magnussen challenging Giovinazzi, who hasn't pitted yet and is down in 9th place. Had they have left Grosjean out any longer, he'd have lost places anyway.
DRS, let's see what this does going down there. Is it enough? Not quite, is it?
That's a little squeeze from Kevin Magnussen on Antonio Giovinazzi. Squeeze didn't work though, did it? And the Italian stayed firm and resolute. It seems, Martin, we've seen 3 drivers now try to go around the outside at turn 3. It's not the way to do it. If you can go down the inside, it might be easier.
Sneaking up the outside of a roundabout in the wrong lane, isn't it? They're not going to let you in. Their life depends on it. Yeah, anyway, it's good to see that action down there. So 10.8 seconds for Grosjean's stop.
Lewis Hamilton, by the way, his outlap after the pits 2 seconds slower than Sebastian Vettel. So Vettel's closed the gap to about 1.8 seconds, and they really did get very close. Antonio Giovinazzi in his 3rd Grand Prix, and Kevin Magnussen for the Haas team in his 82nd Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas leads this race from Max Verstappen, running in the top 3 for the first time ever as a Red Bull driver here in Australia. That is Daniel Ricciardo being lapped by Valtteri Bottas. That is not what Daniel Ricciardo would have wanted here in the Australian Grand Prix, but he has stopped because he lost his front wing right at the start, and Valtteri Bottas hasn't yet.
And Ricciardo's pace has not been good. They did talk about some other damage.
And Valtteri, we want to do 2 more laps. Your pace is quicker than Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis just struggling a little bit on the new set of tyres that they put on the medium set of tyres, and his last lap was about half a second slower than his teammate.
Yeah, and Vettel's beginning to catch Hamilton a little bit out the back of the circuit. Leclerc's ahead of them, but he hasn't pitted yet.
Yeah, just all to do with that outlap. Hamilton not getting the tyres up to temperature in the way that he would have wanted, and Vettel took 2 seconds off during the space of 1 lap. Right, far side of the track. We're on board with the Haas once again of Kevin Magnussen. Antonio Giovinazzi ahead of him, and right behind is Nico Hulkenberg waiting to take advantage. Sebastian Vettel going so well, he's got the current fastest lap of this race.
I was telling you about what looks like smoke coming off, the condensed air basically coming off the vortices, like little mini tornadoes off the edges of these higher and wider, bigger. And he's gone wide in turn 13, and that's exposed him also then to Hulkenberg. So that is what you're seeing boiling off the top edges and the corners of the rear wings.
To be fair to Giovinazzi, he's not stopped yet. He's carrying on for another lap. The car in front of him and the one behind have made a pit stop for fresher tyres. But Magnussen had a little look, went late on the brakes, and maybe that put the young Italian off, I don't know. Down the straight, Nico Hulkenberg's managed to catch him as well. So Giovinazzi will drop down out of the points now. Magnussen up to 9th, Hulkenberg to 10th.
And Giovinazzi will need to get out of the way pronto to let his teammate through. He's on a different strategy, something like that.
Which he is doing. Giovinazzi, by the way, running car number 99 as his racing number. Second time we've had that in Formula 1. Adrian Sutil was a 99 as well, and that was Magnussen putting Giovinazzi
That was quite smart from Magnussen, because he was off the race line, took a very unusual line going in there, and I think he probably had Giovinazzi looking in his mirrors when he should have been looking for the apex.
Esteban Ocon rather like that as well at the back of the Mercedes garage, watching his peers as a reserve driver this year. Right,
Look at that. Bottas is going even faster, Crofty, now, despite having not pitted. He's very comfortable out there, isn't he?
So, Sergio Perez and Danny Kvyat, with Kvyat still to pit and running 7th at the moment. This is the battle between himself and the Racing Point driver. Perez is in 16th, but when he does pit Danny Kvyat, he's obviously going to lose time, and at the moment will come out just about a 10th of a second ahead of Sergio Perez. That's going to change all the time now, depending on where the drivers are on the track. Can Kvyat jump Sergio Perez once they've made their pit stops?
Either Hamilton's in major get these tyres to the end of the race mode, or he's struggling because they're very slow in the 1:29s, and the Bottas at 1:27.8 out front.
So maybe the Bottas side of the garage making the right call here. to be fair, as we watch Lando Norris going wheel to wheel here with the slightly more experienced Kimi Raikkonen in the, Antonio Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo. I say slightly more experienced, he still fits, doesn't he? He's got 3 Grand Prix to Norris's debut. That was a good battle there.
Yeah, and Norris on fresher tyres now, so Giovinazzi is backing him up a little bit into Grosjean, the recovering Romain Grosjean.
This is working out beautifully for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. He is 14.3 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, out in the lead as we watch Giovinazzi and Norris. Got squeezed off a bit there, but he comes back for more.
The chance of losing your front wing in an instant like that, and you can see he's on the hard tyres, Lando Norris, is extremely high.
There's Romain Grosjean, who lost places in the pit stop when the front left tyre just wasn't going on quick enough. I'm trying to make amends for it at the moment. The top 3 separated by 24 seconds now. Right, Bottas from Verstappen from Leclerc. Let's go down to Paul di Resta at race control.
Yeah, Crofty, I'm just watching the times, and the big one that's on the move at the moment is Max Verstappen. Obviously, Vettel is lapping in the 1:29.3s, Max Verstappen 1:28.7.
And Lando Giovinazzi is talking about extending. We need to get past him. Use the tyre if you need to.
He's having a go again, Martin, but the outside is not the way to go, sadly, and Giovinazzi knows that.
Yes, the DRS is certainly not allowing them to sail past, is it? There's three DRS sections on this racetrack. And we're seeing cars in quite close company, but we're not seeing them side by side.
Valtteri Bottas going faster once again. Lap 22 of 58 in the season opener here at Albert Park in Australia. It's a Mercedes that leads, but it's not the man who started on pole. That's Lewis Hamilton. He's down in 4th place at the moment after making his pit stop, and he's round about 2 seconds clear of the man who could be his championship rival, but you know what, his teammate might be as well, Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc hasn't pitted yet. He's still in the top 3, just behind Max Verstappen. After these comes Lance Stroll, 6th, and he hasn't pitted. Danny Kvyat and Pierre Gasly is trying to go for a longer stint after missing out on Q2 yesterday for Red Bull. Magnussen has pitted, as has Hülkenberg. They complete the top 10, after which comes Giovinazzi extending his stint, and Lando Norris chomping at the bit to get past him.
Tough now for Lando. This is where a calm head matters. He's got to navigate his way past that struggling Alfa Romeo and keep an eye on Romain Grosjean behind him. But he's going to have to go up the inside. Got to go up the inside down into turn 3.
Now there's no space there because Giovinazzi closes it off. He knows where to defend as the Italian into turn 3, Martin. Lando Norris for one moment thought there was a gap. Yeah. Very quickly got slammed in his face, and now Kevin Magnussen is right behind Lando Norris, lurking like some great smiling white shark behind him.
Yeah, if your front wing's alongside the other driver's rear tyre, they're not allowed to cut you off like that, but that wasn't the case there. Okay.
What's the reason he's stopping so early? To cover Vettel. He's the car behind 1.9 seconds.
Yeah, he wants to know why his teammate has disappeared out of sight here and why he's struggling a little bit. Apologies to Kevin Magnussen. That's Romain Grosjean right behind Lando Norris, but I still think he's smiling. I still think he approaches like a big great white shark as well. He's got the experience and he's just waiting to pick off the pieces.
Yeah, Lando will be thinking, I'm sure, because he's a bright boy, but we're not at half distance yet. There's no point in a crazy lunge, but somehow he's got to get past, and you must say Giovinazzi looked like he was going to defend that for all he was worth.
Absolutely. Trouble is, Norris can't back off, Martin, can he, and try and cool his tyres down a little bit, because the Haas is right there, waiting to attack. Down the main straight they go into turn 1. Lando Norris needs to get a good exit again.
Came on through box, box, box.
As they prepare for the leader's pit stop, and the Williams moves out of the way and gets to the left-hand side, Robert Kubica, and this time not much chance for Norris to get past. Let's head down to Karun. Valtteri Bottas is in.
Yeah, race leader in the pits here, a little bit slow on the left front. The Mercedes pit box actually at an angle, which caught Valtteri out, I think, a little bit, but he managed to get away. He's still going to be clearly in front of Lewis Hamilton.
and clearly in front of Charles Leclerc as well, which I think was the important thing for Valtteri Bottas there. Comes out behind Verstappen, who hasn't stopped, and into second place.
Yeah, Verstappen leads the Grand Prix then, as you point out, but Bottas's pace, it means that up front now, it's a one-horse race. He's managed to pit some 7 laps later than his teammate Lewis Hamilton, so he's sitting very pretty there.
And Max Verstappen leading with a Honda engine, and the first time Honda have led a Grand Prix since Canada 2008. Rubens Barrichello, not Jenson Button, on that particular occasion. So it's all working out nicely for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. It's not working out too badly, really, is it, for Max Verstappen, who's also managing to extend his stint as we go back to Lando Norris. Is he going to try into turn 1? He's thinking about it. A bit of debris on the right-hand side going through turn 1, just off the racing line, I wonder. He's got DRS once again. He's closing up on Giovinazzi, but he's a bit too far back to make a lunge.
He's locked his brakes, Norris. Where did that end up? He kept it on the track.
Which is thankful for him, because there's Grosjean, there's Albon, and there's Perez waiting behind him as well on the white striped tyre, of course, Lando Norris.
Interesting that turn 5 wasn't full throttle in these conditions, with still more than half tanks of fuel on board.
Just wondering why McLaren have put Norris onto the hard compound tyre. They've not gone onto the medium with him.
I don't think I'm going to make it to the end of the race on this side.
Okay, copy. We'll look into it.
Hamilton on the medium might just have answered that question, Martin.
Yeah, Lewis is not having a happy day out there, is he? When it's all shaken out after they've both stopped, I think it's 17 seconds. No, he's 11 seconds, sorry. 17 seconds off the lead. Verstappen hasn't stopped. It's 11 seconds behind his teammate. But the hard tyre, the most any driver bought was 2, and that does include Norris. But most of them only bought 1 of them. They got no knowledge, or very little knowledge, of these white-marked hard tyres.
Here comes Lando Norris again. He is gaining down that main straight on Antonio Giovinazzi.
Right. Keep it neat and tidy. Get in, get on the throttle, pick up the apex, because Giovinazzi's just compromised himself. This is a better opportunity now, but he's got to somehow find a gap down the right-hand side. It was so tempting to send one in there. But that might have been a Ricciardo send, but it looks like he may have to pull that move.
Right, Max Verstappen, race leader, coming into the pits. I wonder if Karun Chandhok is down anywhere near Red Bull.
Indeed I am. Max Verstappen parked bang on the mark there. Pretty neat and tidy from what I could see. He's gone for the medium crop these. So clearly Red Bull, despite that radio message from Lewis Hamilton, believe that the medium tyre is going to work. This stint was working okay for Max until the last 2 or 3 laps, when Vettel and Hamilton started to peg him back.
But his tyres are 10 laps younger now than the 2 drivers in front of him.
This is boiling up in the latter stages of this race to be quite competitive between Hamilton and Vettel and Verstappen as well, but it's looking very nice indeed for Valtteri Bottas at the moment, who's got a near 7-second interval between himself and Charles Leclerc in second. Leclerc hasn't actually stopped yet. It's 12 seconds between Bottas and his teammate Hamilton, who has stopped.
Getting a proper queue now behind Giovinazzi, who's 12th. Norris, Grosjean, Albon and Perez right in there.
Giovinazzi, Martin, defending brilliantly at the moment, and once again keeping Norris behind him, going into a heavy braking zone.
Yeah, it's turn 1, there's not a whole lot of braking. It's nowhere near as heavy as down here at turn 3.
And on board with Grosjean is sending it down the inside is Lando Norris. That time around, Giovinazzi couldn't keep the line that he wanted, and Lando Norris, about 5 laps too late, I'm sure, for his own liking, has finally got past the Alpha.
Yeah, but he took the opportunity when it was there.
Yep.
He didn't go and take the front off the car with a frustrated lunge, so that worked out well. But he did eventually winkle out a bit of space down the inside and got the job done.
Giovinazzi's got them crawling all over his rear wing at the moment. He is really struggling for grip out there.
Giovinazzi moved twice, but he still left a car's width on the outside.
Here's Romain Grosjean then, getting closer to the Alpha. Can he go round the long way into turn 11? No chance of getting past there. Giovinazzi defending superbly here and helping his teammate Kimi Räikkönen, who's currently in 11th place. He's keeping faster cars at bay. Grosjean goes down the inside into turn 13, manages to get past the Italian in the Alpha. And he didn't want to hang around too much as well. And I wonder if Giovinazzi's going to come into the pits at the end of this lap, because he really is starting to struggle out there. No, he's going to carry on a bit longer. As out of the pits comes the Toro Rosso of Danny Kvyat, and he comes into the pits down in 11th. And we were talking a few laps ago about the gap between himself and Sergio Perez. Well, Giovinazzi's defending has really helped Kvyat to get ahead of Perez in the pit stops.
Yeah, Giovinazzi just can't get off the turns anymore, can't get off the corners, and he's a sitting duck. I don't really understand fully why they're leaving him out there, frankly. He looks like he's got all the grip of oiled oak at the moment.
Well, Alex Albon thought he might be able to get past, but he doesn't. He stays in 16th and Giovinazzi in 15th, and this is what it looked like for Lando Norris, the teenager, trying to get past Antonio Giovinazzi, who's 25, by the way. And Gilles Ferran liked it, and the rest of the McLaren pit wall liked it as well, as we see what happened with Romain Grosjean and then Sergio Perez getting past Alex Albon on the inside of turn 10. Oh, blimey. Alex Albon very nearly whacking the wall on the outside there. That wasn't too far away from a nasty accident.
It's not. There's a bit of a Formula One magnet in that wall on the outside of turn 10.
Right, Paul di Resta has been poised like a finely tightened spring to bring us some info from race control. Paul.
Just watching Giovinazzi, Crofty, he was defending absolutely perfect. Position in the car, spot on. But all that, and why McLaren were pushing Norris, they had to make a move, because what that's played into is the likes of Gasly, Stroll, all these guys have managed to get in and get out in front of that McLaren. So it might have just been a little bit too late, that bold move that Norris made, and it might just spoil his points, spoil his day of scoring some points.
Finally, Antonio Giovinazzi can come in for a change of tyres, and they can put the soft tyres on, but they want to put the tyres on a bit quicker than this.
Well, I mean, wait all that time for a new set of tyres, and then they don't get them on.
That's cost him, 5 seconds in the pit stop. For Antonio Giovinazzi, who's going to be an awful lot faster than some in this race, but he's going to be a long, long way down now, down in 17th after that pit stop. Oh dear, the wheel gun didn't want to attach. Right, Charles Leclerc, Karun.
Yeah, Leclerc's gone under the hard tyre, Crofty. So Ferrari hedging their bets a little bit on that tyre choice for the second stint. It was a nice, clean stop. Leclerc's not having a great debut at Ferrari, is he? Way, way down compared to Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen after that error earlier on.
So I think they must be hoping that the medium tyre without a safety car can't get to the end of the race in a competitive state.
They brought an extra set of the hard tyres for Charles Leclerc for this race. He had a set less of the medium tyre, but yeah, that message from Lewis Hamilton about I'm not sure I can get to the end of the race on these tyres, and he's currently running the medium. Did that sway? I wonder Ferrari's decision there.
Well, I wonder if they've got nothing to lose, really, have they? If it's with Gasly out of contention, really, from the back of the grid, they've got nothing to lose with Leclerc. It might pay off later on, and he'll probably finish 5th anyway. But what's happening now is Lewis has no pace, and that means that Vettel is sort of gapping him as well. And we've got Verstappen right on their tail, and his tyres are 11 laps younger than Vettel, 10 laps younger than Hamilton in front of him. And all of a sudden, it's game on for Red Bull.
You know what I've really missed in the winter, Martin? Max Verstappen going for some overtakes. Guess what? We're right back in the first race of the season, and Max Verstappen is going for it here, and Sebastian Vettel could become the first victim of the young Dutchman in 2019 as we approach the turn 3 stopping zone. Verstappen has a look, but he's a bit too far back on this occasion.
Verstappen with race-leading pace at the moment. Bottas 16 seconds clear. It's a one-horse race out front, but Verstappen then starting to get busy on the tail, on the gearbox of Sebastian Vettel, and Hamilton only a couple of seconds up the road.
This is the last thing Sebastian Vettel needs, isn't it, really? Ferrari's pace from winter testing didn't appear in qualifying, and he's now slap bang in a fight with Max Verstappen, who does have his Dutch fans here who travel the world to cheer him on. That's a great sign, isn't it? The Ferrari ahead of the Red Bull, the lake just on the other side as they blast their way through turns 11 and 12. Down towards 13, if Verstappen close enough, he's got DRS, he's gaining on the Ferrari, needs a few more car lengths.
And they're well happy with the power they're getting from the Honda, aren't they, in the Red Bull, and the top speed's been pretty solid, up there around a couple of 100 miles an hour, 320 clicks. So, but Bottas continues to hold the fastest lap. Only the top 10 are able to score a point by scoring the fastest lap, to stop a load of people getting crazy at the end of the race.
Here he comes, he's getting closer, Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. He almost was alongside the Ferrari, but now gets a really good getaway from turn 2, and he is wheel to wheel with DRS down towards turn 3. Max Verstappen moves up into 3rd place. It was tight, but he's managed to squeeze that Red Bull through and ahead of the Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel down to 4th as they retire from this race. Daniel Ricciardo, it's a 3rd retirement in his home Grand Prix for the man from Perth, and that is a very, very disappointing end to one of his happiest weekends of the season.
And while we're watching that, Leclerc on those hard tyres has done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so he holds that point at the moment. And so Vettel got out of shape in the first corner. Verstappen was on him and then gets a second helping of the rear wing open. He gets a better drive off turn 2. Now he can open the rear wing again, and job done. And just up the road is Lewis Hamilton. And he's still sensibly.
And retiring from the race is Romain Grosjean. This time last year, the wheels came off for Haas after their pit stop. That looks like another mechanical failure, another mechanical problem. Grosjean retires from the Australian Grand Prix, actually for the 3rd year in a row.
Bad news for Roman. He's been going incredibly well. Bottas steals fastest lap back again from Leclerc. So, I mean, it's only a point, but that means there are 21 points available this year for fastest lap. And whilst they're all going, oh, it doesn't really matter, it's a bit of a nuisance, the front-running teams don't really like it, because they know that if there's a driver, say, in 6th, who's got a big gap behind him, can afford a pit stop with 5 laps to go, they'll be taking it. It might be a consolation prize for 5th or 6th, but at the moment, it's the race leader that means a 26-point haul if it stays like this to the end of the Grand Prix.
I don't think it's going to be a bonus point at all, Martin, for anyone down in the midfield battle this afternoon. And even if Valtteri Bottas, we're getting ahead of ourselves, it's only lap 32 here, but if he goes on to win, the race takes the fastest point as well, assuming that, you know, he doesn't have a dreadful China. He's going to hold on to that race lead maybe for a little bit extra. And what did he get? 7 fastest laps, Valtteri Bottas, last year?
It's difficult to backtrack and count all that up because there wasn't a point for fastest lap. Other people may have handled the situations differently had there been a point available. So it's really hard to retrospectively apply that, but we can certainly apply it today. He had no pace, did he, after that front wing gone and the damage the front wing did. He'll look at that and think, oh, it was a touch. And I mean, there's no point in being on the grass, but the grass was brutal to him.
It certainly was. 8th season in Formula One, his first season as a non-Red Bull driver, and out of this race. And what of Romain Grosjean? Now, that front right there, Martin.
The left's not on properly, look.
Yeah, the left's not on.
They remember they had a problem putting the front wheel on.
Front suspension's broken.
No, it's not. The front left wheels come off. Remember, they were a long time in the pits trying to get this front wheel on. Whether it was cross-threaded, I don't know. But eventually, that's tried to part company. There's some security pieces in there to make sure the wheel doesn't fully come off.
When did Romain Grosjean pit in this race? What lap was it? Lap 15. We're now on lap 32. It's done a lot of laps. If that front tyre, that front wheel was loose. Yeah. And I really hope it's not another problem with loose wheels for the Haas team there. That's not good. Right, Max Verstappen catching Lewis Hamilton. As you can see, the gap was 1.5 seconds between them at the end of the last lap as they crossed the line to complete lap 33 in this race. The gap's 1.3 seconds. So another couple of tenths. Verstappen has taken out of Hamilton's advantage. Keeps going like that. 2 laps time. We'll have DRS as well.
Hamilton's just on a purple.
No, I've got no rear end. Car is already neutral.
Okay, copy.
He's just in a purple sector in the final sector, which is 34.4 seconds long. Fastest man of the entire Grand Prix so far, but he's not one of his. He's not in that happy mood, is he? That. No. And we have occasionally seen this with Lewis. He's going to be coming around and seeing the gap to his teammate now up at 19.2 seconds. And, too many more laps, and Bottas will have a pit stop in hand.
Absolutely.
In the lead out front.
And he's not exactly pushing massively hard, but he is the fastest man on the track by some margin. 19 seconds clear, Valtteri Bottas of Lewis Hamilton. Jos Verstappen watches on as his young man, his young son, chases down the 5-time world champion. Sebastian Vettel is losing touch with the top 3, down in 4th place at the moment. His teammate Charles Leclerc has lost touch with Sebastian Vettel. He's down in 5th. Pierre Gasly still running without a pit stop on the medium compound tyre. He's in 5th place at the moment at 23 seconds to his race time, and he's still going to come out possibly ahead of the likes of Kimi Raikkonen down in 9th. Gasly could be on for a good points finish here. Kevin Magnussen, the sole remaining Haas driver, runs 7th ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, Kimi Raikkonen and Lance Stroll, who is up into the points and no doubt helped, it has to be said, as have a few been, by Giovanazzi's stout defence in his battle against Lando Norris.
Yeah, it hurt Norris quite badly, didn't it, behind Giovinazzi? But a man who's in the 1:27s, like the leader, is Daniel Kvyat, down in 11th place, going very nicely indeed.
That's the man we're riding on board with at the moment. Lance Stroll just ahead of him. Kvyat on the hard compound tyre on his racing return, of course, to Toro Rosso, where he's scored points before here, finished 9th a couple of times. I don't actually think he's ever finished ahead of 9th place for Toro Rosso in his career. He's been on the podium, of course, for Red Bull, but he's got a great chance now with some DRS assistance of getting close to the racing point car ahead of him. Another battle that could last 4 or 5 laps taking place in front of us here. You've really got to just be patient, Martin. Bide your time, keep plugging away here, haven't you?
Yeah, you got to. It's a bit of a chess move, isn't it? Because the braking zones are quite short, and if you do take a lunge, it's a good chance of contact, or you've got to hope the person you're overtaking is kind to you. Gasly going long, as you say, the only driver not to pit. Maybe he's hoping to put, well, he won't put the softs on, will he? Because he started on the softs, so he's only got the mediums or hards available to him. He's got to use 2 compounds on a dry day.
So racing points with the 1 point at the moment. Started 16th, now up to 10th. We've lost in this race, by the way, Carlos Sainz, with Zach Brown saying early indications at McLaren. Oh, a big lock up there from Lance Stroll. That's going to give Danny Kvyat a bit of hope, isn't it? MG UK problem for the McLaren. Daniel Ricciardo retired as a precaution following his early incident where he lost his front wing. Romain Grosjean with a loose front left wheel. All out of this race. We're on board with Danny Kvyat. Lance Stroll just moved over a touch to the right there to show the Russian that he wasn't going to be able to get past down the inside. Is Kvyat biding his time and going to make a move down the inside into turn 3? He gets close, but not close enough, and backs off just before the racing point comes across his front wing and potentially causes a bit of damage.
I don't think he's got enough straight line speed. He's going to have to get quite strategic and hustle Stroll into Apex 1. And see if he can do a bit like Norris did on the fading Giovinazzi earlier on. And we get a good view of the top of the wing there at high speed as the aerodynamics are doing their work. I think we're going to see this all season long. The midfield is brutally close, isn't it? Yeah. Some great cars and drivers in there as well. They're pretty feisty. They will have a go.
That's what we want to see. And when Danny Kvyat's in this sort of mood, he's a great guy to watch as well, Martin. I know he picks up some unfortunate nicknames, where Daniel Ricciardo called him the torpedo, but he can pull off some decent moves, and he is a thoroughly entertaining driver on his day.
He's got maturity to go with his speed now. He did have a habit of hitting anything that moved, but certainly got a bit ambitious on the throttle pedal there, the loud pedal. He lit the rear tyres up, and that's put him back a little bit.
So he stays, does Danny Kvyat, down in 11th place. The battle for the final point here. We can have another little look, can't we, Martin? Got a bit hot into the corner.
Turns in early. A little bit of wheel spin, nothing dramatic, but it...
Oh, and he's gone off. No, he has, Danny Kvyat, off onto the gravel. Oh dear, that's down at turn 3, and that's undone all of his good work of the last few laps for Danny Kvyat. He hasn't lost a place, but he's lost a massive chunk as he went down the inside and went in way too quickly.
Curiously, the front tyres weren't really low. He didn't want to flat spot them, but there we go. So it's the lunge. Well, they did. As soon as it was a bona fide move, but as soon as you start applying steering lock, you put cross weight into the car, across the chassis, across the suspension, and you unload the right front tyre with all the geometry of that. That's fair enough. He'll catch him back up again.
Valtteri Bottas with another new fastest lap of the race, and it means the gap is 20.5 seconds between himself and Lewis Hamilton. 324,000 people have come to Albert Park this weekend to see the Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly is the last scheduled pit stop of the weekend, and he comes out just behind Lance Stroll there in the racing point, and ahead of Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso. And Kvyat's little off there, Martin, cost him dear, hasn't he? Because he's now got to get past the Red Bull. Toro Rosso going wheel to wheel with the Red Bull. We don't often see these two fighting, but Kvyat's got tyre temperature and he's got a lot more grip, and he gets that place.
Yeah, sister teams, of course.
Yeah.
There'll be some consternation on the pit wall because they've got Gasly on a fresh set of tyres, and now he's behind Kvyat. That's to an extent a bit of a Red Bull own goal, but as you said, Kvyat's mistake opened the door for that pit stop for Gasly, and it hasn't quite worked out. What are they going to do about that? Will they be marching down the pit wall and they're like, France, like, have a word? We've got much better tyres than you.
I'm sure the question might be asked, but just on behalf of everyone who likes to see racing and good wheel-to-wheel racing, and no team orders in Formula One, although they do exist and they're not illegal, I hope Franz Tost will turn around and blow a big raspberry at Christian Horner should that question be asked.
Inter-team orders, this one. But it'll be interesting to see. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't a nod and wink down the pit wall of like, come on, don't hold our guy up. But, well, let's see if we can stay with him first before we make that, or I make that summary.
I'll tell you what, Martin, if ever there was a question to be asked like that of Franz Tost, would you please let your guy let our guy past? I'd send you to ask him.
Yeah, I'd do it for the entertainment value. Because Gasly's on the soft tyre as well, for good measure.
So
he's got a bundle of grip now.
Well, if the question has been asked, it's not been answered in the affirmative. Danny Kvyat is still ahead of Pierre Gasly, who should actually get a better exit out of turn 2, and he certainly with some DRS getting a lot closer, but not close enough. The marshal watching on from the side of the track there. This is kind of ruining Pierre Gasly's strategy for this afternoon. 18 laps to go here, and he thought once Kvyat had gone off, Red Bull would have thought, right, we're in the clear here, we can make a pit stop, get out ahead of the Toro Rosso, and already started to chase down, but that is not happening. Good, I'm glad it's not. I actually want to see some racing here. I want to see Gasly make an overtake.
Same engines, pretty similar cars. Gasly with the much better tyres. I'm surprised he's not climbing all over him like a rash, to be honest. But so Leclerc then is heading into that position, that unfortunate position where in P5 he's got more than a pit stop behind him to Magnussen, where he could start towards the end of the race playing the game of a fresh set of tyres and trying to get that World Championship point away from both Mercedes and the driver. In terms of Bottas and Mercedes have the extra point at the moment. Leclerc might be there for the consolation prize.
Kvyat's here for the taking for Gasly. If Gasly with the DRS can keep on closing, 2 Honda-powered cars blasting down the straight. He had a little look on the inside, did Gasly, and thought better of it.
Picked up some understeer, didn't have a particularly good apex, Gasly, so his second dose of DRS not helping too much. What's he going to do here?
He's just going to bide his time a little bit. This is not looking good on the CV of Pierre Gasly at the moment, it has to be said.
No inter-team orders yet.
Lance Stroll ahead of Danny Kvyat by a fair margin, by about 4.2 seconds. It's 22 seconds, near enough, out in front for Valtteri Bottas at the moment as we go back to Gasly. Through the chicane at turns 9 and 10. And the Frenchman a little bit furious, I'm sure, with the situation he found himself on, but it's a little bit better than it was last year for him, where he started last on his debut in Formula One and then retired after 13 laps.
Of course, Kvyat's in the World Championship points. He's recatching Stroll, Raikkonen and Hülkenberg for good measure, so it's in Toro Rosso's interest just to stay there. And I guess the answer has been, look, if you've got a faster car on much faster tyres, it's up to you to overtake us.
Well, he's certainly dragging Pierre Gasly with him and a little bit closer to those in front. So how close is he this time, Gasly? You can see from the helicopter camera that gap closes and closes. It needs that
he's
good
had a bubble.
exit.
Kvyat had a little bobble in the middle there, but he's
Did he lose
better.
speed?
He releases better off turn 2.
Hold overtake button. Hold overtake button. 5 seconds.
That's what I did, but doesn't give me more speed.
So expecting power and a boost from that Honda engine and applying it for 5 seconds like he's been instructed to do so, but not coming in time for him, for Pierre Gasly. This is Charles Leclerc, currently in 5th place, and there's a gap of about 25.5 seconds, 26 seconds down to Kevin Magnussen. Comfortably, Martin now has a pit stop in hand to go after a fastest lap of the race, should he choose to, or should Ferrari choose to as well.
So Ferrari then, 4th and 5th, over half a minute behind the leaders. That's not what we expected after winter testing, is it? How bizarre.
Certainly not the way it looked. Charles Leclerc, to his credit, started to close down a bit on Sebastian Vettel at the moment, and taking a bit of time out of the gap between himself and the 4-time world champion, his teammate for this season. Doing it consistently throughout the lap. On that last lap, nearly 7/10 of a second.
We do not have a Ferrari in a podium position.
Yeah.
Just reminds you that winter testing is confusing. Really struggling to get into turn 9 there.
Quickest at the final pre-season test Ferrari for the 4th successive year. They haven't won a title since 2007, the drivers, or 2008 with the constructors. But the new team principal, Mattia Binotto, we saw him yesterday in qualifying shaking his head because he knew in Q2 that they perhaps didn't have the pace they thought they had in comparison to Mercedes and to Red Bull.
Bottas is just amusing himself up front, isn't he? 126.7 now. That's just miles faster than anybody else. 3 wheels on his wagon, sadly. Romain Grosjean is a spectator now, and that's a shame. He's done a great job this weekend.
Like I said, for the 3rd year in a row for Romain Grosjean, retiring from this Australian Grand Prix.
Vettel looking down in the cockpit.
Why are we so slow?
We don't know at the moment.
When he says, why are we so slow, Charles Leclerc has taken another 7/10 out of his advantage on that last lap. What is happening?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that, can you see anything going wrong with my motor? He was definitely looking down in the cockpit when we cut to him. Down in turn 3 was Sebastian Vettel. And it's kind of the question you normally ask the driver, really. If he's got decent, that suggests that the car's handling reasonably well. He just, every time he crosses the finish line, he thinks his timing screen is lying to him.
All right, well, it's not lying, and there you can see lap 39, lap 40, 41 and 42, where Charles Leclerc has been closing the gap. Let's head down to Karun.
Yeah, indeed, guys. The gap at one stage was 12 seconds. It's now half. It's 6.2 at this point. Sebastian Vettel at one point, Martin, was in the 1 minute 30. So clearly something not right there. I have been down to Ferrari, and they genuinely don't know. They have no idea why. There's pace lacking. They're not sure, or they're not willing to tell us whether it's the motor or a handling issue. Further up, by the way, Max Verstappen now 1.5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, as you mentioned before. Tyres that are 11 lap newer. He's keeping the pressure on for the final part of this Grand Prix.
I think he's playing a really cagey game at the moment. He's waiting perhaps maybe the last 5 or 6 laps when Hamilton's got even less grip, and his advantage might be more in his favour to mount that challenge. Out in front though, Valtteri Bottas still. He's led most of this race, and in his Formula 1 career so far, whenever he's led more than 20 laps of a race, he's always won it. Russia and Austria and Abu Dhabi in 2017.
We'll probably aim for 10 laps of fun at the end.
Cagey game, biding his time. 10 laps of fun, as predicted by Gianpiero Lambiase, the race engineer. For Max Verstappen, who finished off last season, Martin, with 5 consecutive podiums, longest run of his career. Looking good at the moment for a podium, but where would your money go, 3rd or 2nd this afternoon?
I can't imagine that Mercedes haven't kept some engine mode, a bit of extra power and some tyres for what's inevitably coming their way. That piece of information will now be fed, of course, to Lewis, and they are having a squabble only over 2nd place. Valtteri Bottas has checked out up front and leads by 25 seconds.
The consistency of Charles Leclerc continues on, by the way. Another 7/10 or so on that last lap. 5.2 seconds the gap between himself and Sebastian Vettel.
And you don't sense Vettel's got any answer if he catches him up.
Asking the pit wall, why are we so slow? Getting the answer, we don't know at the moment.
And Leclerc, of course, had a little trip across the grass that's now costing him dearly. He's 5 seconds adrift, but catching.
We'll put it this way, that thought, Martin, that Charles Leclerc might pit and go for a fastest lap. I think that might have gone out of their thinking at the moment, because there's an extra 2 points on offer if we can get past Sebastian Vettel.
And what will the team do? Will they just call that race off? They're not really racing anybody. Magnussen's a half a minute behind them.
Well, what sort of message does that send out to Sebastian Vettel and a team where they've talked about prioritising Vettel and a number 1 and a number 2 driver? Does that send out a message that Sebastian Vettel wouldn't agree with? I thought Charles Leclerc in the press conference, when he was asked about that, was absolutely superb. He said, yeah, I totally agree. We need a number 1 and we need a number 2. Up to me, though, a 50-50 chance to turn things around in my favour.
Yes.
Very clever.
This hasn't been one of those days.
No.
But so we're moving towards the 10 laps to go zone, when we know that Verstappen is going to be given permission to step it up a little bit, that when he's got enough power modes and tyres to get him to the end of the Grand Prix at a pace. He must be sitting there thinking, I'm going to get you. But is he?
The only way we can lose this race is by not having rubber for a safety car. Copy.
So we just saw him take a rip-off of the visor. When you're lapping cars or whatever, your visor gets a little bit messy. They don't pour oil out these days, they're not allowed to. But you have to make sure you don't put that over your head. It has to go out the side, otherwise it goes in your own airbox. A lesson we've all learned the hard way back in the day.
Does that seem a strange message to you, though, Martin? The only way we can lose this race is by not having rubber for a safety car. Why would you be talking to your driver about, well, the only way we can lose this? Would you be saying that? I don't know. It just seems like...
Yeah, to decode that, it's back off and make sure you've got tyres in case you all get bunched up behind a safety car and you need a run to the end. You need to generate some heat back in them. You need the thickness of the rubber. In other words, look, slow down, I would say, and stop. You've got it under control. just protect those tyres now and protect against the unexpected.
Two Ferraris down the main straight. Charles Leclerc can see Sebastian Vettel. I can see Paul di Resta at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, Crofty, I'm keeping an eye on Max Verstappen's on board, obviously, because it's just about to come into the fruity time. But the midfield battle's what everyone's talked about in Formula 1, how close it is. And you've got 5 cars within 7 seconds. And that goes from Magnussen all the way down to Gasly. Gasly being on the soft tyre and Magnussen being one of the early stoppers on the medium.
It's difficult to overtake here at Albert Park. I want to see that battle at a Bahrain or a China, a Bahrain with 3 DRS zones as well. We can have an absolute fiesta in the midfield. In 2 weeks' time, see it live and exclusive, of course, on Sky Sports F1. And then China for the 1000th World Championship Grand Prix 2 weeks after that.
So Kvyat's re-caught Stroll after his trip through the gravel. Gasly still right on his tail in 11th place, but Stroll is right with Raikkonen as well for good measure, who's not too far behind Hülkenberg. That could get very good too.
Gasly then still behind Danny Kvyat, the scrap for the last points on offer in this afternoon's race. Beautiful summer's Sunday evening. It's kind of autumnal here. There's a lot of leaves being blown off the trees, but it's absolutely gorgeous evening here. The track temperature's come down now. It's 23 degrees air temperature, packed crowd enjoying the action. We're on board with Pierre Gasly, race 998 in the World Championship. China, as I say, being the 1000th World Championship Grand Prix. It's come a long way since Silverstone on May the 13th, 1950. Where are the straw bales these days, Martin?
There is the fight we were talking about. Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen, Stroll, Kvyat, Gasly.
Nico Hülkenberg has had a bit of a lonely race today, really. He's not really been in touch with Kevin Magnussen since the pit stops. Magnussen has had a bit more pace. He's holding on to Kimi Raikkonen well, although Raikkonen's starting to come back at him a little bit.
So we talked about the B class, didn't we? But Bottas is cruising up to lap that lot I just mentioned. I'll remind you, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Raikkonen, Stroll, Kvyat, Gasly. He's cruising up behind them. They're going to have to take the blue flags. Well, that's usually an opportunity, if you're a bit crafty, to make a bit of ground as well. But Bottas not too far behind them now.
It's going to disrupt, if they all jump out of the way, it's going to disrupt this fight a little bit as well. Yeah. I'm not going to take the opportunity of the first race of the season to demand for the removal of blue flags. I'll leave that a couple of races.
Wait for Bahrain, yeah.
Yeah, wait for Bahrain on that.
So, yeah, Bottas then, or will he? Does he need to? Does he really need to go and get involved in that lot? Hello, Max, what are you doing there? That wasn't the plan in the last 10 laps. That's
not the party, is it? We saw him do that, chasing Kevin Magnussen, didn't we, last year? Here, Max Verstappen. This time he was in pursuit of Lewis Hamilton, and that's cost him time.
That spoiled the party.
All the fun and games, the vol-au-vents and the party poppers were coming Max Verstappen's way, but not for the moment. He has lost quite a bit of time. Look, that gap, 3.5 seconds between himself and Lewis Hamilton.
And he's got to clean those tyres up as well.
So, Lance Stroll getting closer to Kimi Raikkonen, who's keeping Nico Hülkenberg honest, who's keeping Kevin Magnussen honest, and behind Stroll is Danny Kvyat, who's been kept very honest by Pierre Gasly. Max Verstappen has just set the fastest middle sector of any lap we've seen so far, so he's decided the party could still be made.
An angry Max Verstappen, angry with himself, I'd imagine. Well, I'd be pretty sure, actually. Made me jump that. Camera angle actually made me jump.
It's a great camera angle. It just shows the speed of these cars. Gasly's having another little look at Danny Kvyat. Well, if he's going to overtake him, he's going to have to do it through his own abilities this afternoon. Verstappen's closed the arrears to Hamilton by about 3/10 on that last lap, or actually by about 6/10 on that last lap, but he's an awful lot further back than he thought he might be. We're on lap 50 of this Australian Grand Prix. It's looking very nice at the moment for Valtteri Bottas. He leads from his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who started on pole. Max Verstappen currently third fastest. His teammates, we were watching Pierre Gasly getting closer once again to Danny Kvyat. Now, Kvyat's going to have a bit of DRS here. That's going to help him. But is Pierre Gasly a little bit closer to that Toro Rosso, I wonder? If he didn't have DRS, Kvyat, it'd be in all sorts of bother, I think, here. But that DRS train, it's keeping them all one after the other, after the other, after the other, isn't it?
Yeah, as the leader relentlessly closes them down. What will Bottas choose to do? Oh, I think I might have sent one up the inside there.
And there's Pierre Gasly almost getting alongside Danny Kvyat. Kvyat defending for all his might. As Charles Leclerc closes to within 1 second, is now 0.6 of a second. The gap between himself and Sebastian Vettel for fourth place at the moment. We said a few laps ago he was reducing the arrears by about 0.7 of a second. It has come down even more now. If you're Sebastian Vettel, do you just let Leclerc go past and then just think about getting to the end, I wonder?
Leclerc's got DRS. He ought to be able to breeze past it, really, isn't he? He's got more pace. Wonder what Vettel's thinking in there. What's he going to do with the young charger?
He's looking in his rear-view mirrors at the moment to see where Leclerc is, and Leclerc is still behind him. The gap, about 0.7 of a second. So if the Ferrari pit wall said, just hang back a little bit, Charles, here. I mean, we think that your teammate's got a mechanical problem, and we want to keep it as it is.
Verstappen hasn't given up on second place yet either. After that little trip across the grass, he's coming at it even harder. Bottas has passed Gasly. He is going to go through the pack.
You're still holding the fastest lap.
So what's the plan in the end? Are we gonna stop for the quickest lap time, or should I just try with these tires in the end?
And Valtteri, we are not taking any risk, so we won't be stopping.
Copy, but I want 26 points, so I'm gonna try it in the end.
Yeah, so the drivers do care about the fastest lap.
I know, I like this fastest lap thing. Because the big teams are like, oh, we don't like it. Because they don't like it. Because it throws confusion in, and there probably isn't an algorithm for it or a software program. But I like it. It adds a dimension to the end of the race. So what Bottas has got to do is navigate his way through. I mean, and Verstappen got very close to fastest lap last time around as he's trying to catch back up to Hamilton. Get himself through that pack, get some clear air, and go for it.
Norris ahead of Perez, the Williams behind them. Sadly, is a couple of laps down, George Russell, so that's not getting involved in that particular fight. But you can see Lewis Hamilton getting close to Sergio Perez as he tries to lap the racing point. And Charles Leclerc has backed off and is now over 1.5 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel. And that will be talked about after the race, I'm sure.
They're not exactly jumping out of the way and letting Bottas through at the moment, but he is slowly getting through. That was Hamilton actually passing Perez, of course, but Bottas was still behind Kvyat.
Martin, Charles Leclerc is at the moment 35 seconds or so ahead of Kevin Magnussen in 6th place. If he can't overtake Sebastian Vettel, and Ferrari is saying no, good afternoon, Sir Bob Geldof, shouldn't they just let him pit and get a point for an extra, for the fastest lap if they can?
Well, they've got that useful information that Mercedes are not going to try and do that. They can't do it with Hamilton, of course. So it's worth them doing. If they're not going to, if he's not allowed to go and play with Vettel, try and get the extra point.
5 laps to go. In a few moments, Bottas leads Hamilton by 24 seconds. Started on the front row alongside his teammate. Pole sitter has only won once here in the last 7 years. It's looking a fair bet for once in the last 8 years as it stands. Way back in 10th place at the moment is Danny Kvyat. He's the car ahead of us at the moment as we ride on board with Pierre Gasly. It was almost very good for Gasly. Kvyat had gone off the track. Gasly pitted, came out ahead of the Russian, but the Russian managed to get past him 2 turns later. And I wonder what Gasly's race would have looked like had he not got Danny Kvyat in the same powered car right ahead of him ever since. He's all a little bit frustrated at the moment.
They've certainly got enough space behind the Ferraris, but Leclerc's got back on it again. Whether he made a mistake unseen by us for that 1:30 lap that he put in recently, I don't know, but he suddenly started coming back Vettel, and Vettel's done a fastest middle sector of the race. Where did that come from? And whether Leclerc's just trying to say, look, sorry, that's Verstappen's fastest middle sector. It's up in front of me. Sorry about that. And I wonder if Leclerc's just saying, look, this is how much faster I am. I've dropped back, now I'm just going to close him straight down again.
Well, see him race, we really do. Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen, then who's 2 seconds back on Lewis Hamilton. Vettel, 17 seconds near enough, or 18 and a bit seconds down on Max Verstappen. The Ferrari pace has just disappeared. It really has in comparison to the Mercedes and to the Red Bull this afternoon. Leclerc losing touch a little bit on his teammate. Then comes Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hülkenberg, Kimi Räikkönen, who was 6th on his debut for Sauber back in 2001. He's 8th at the moment on his return to the Swiss team now called Alfa Romeo. Then comes Lance Stroll and Danny Kvyat completing the top 10. Whoever your driver of the day is, you can vote and have your say. I would imagine Valtteri Bottas will get a fair amount of plaudits because he's not put a foot wrong, Martin.
Certainly, well, he's been set in a class of one. He's cruising, but it's a no-brainer for Ferrari now to get Leclerc in and try to get fastest lap, because I think Verstappen's having a good go at stealing that point off Bottas on this very lap.
And he's going to, in a little while, get a bit of DRS assistance as well, if he can go that much faster. What's the gap between himself and Lewis Hamilton? It's 1.3 seconds, and Verstappen has the fastest lap of the race.
Now, will Mercedes choose to tell Valtteri Bottas that? Because he said, I want 26 points.
They've told him. He's just gone fastest overall through the first sector.
Yeah, but he's in a bunch of traffic.
Yeah, so that's not going to help him too much. Over on the far side, through turns 10 and down towards turn 11 goes Valtteri Bottas. The thing here, though, is that Verstappen is charging like a raging Red Bull to try and get Lewis Hamilton between now and what we should say is still a checkered flag, but it's a checkered panel that you'll see for 2019. And look at that. Big cheers for the crowd. You can hear them as they see Verstappen's that much closer to Lewis Hamilton.
All right, that's purple that lap, but there's all sorts of games going on at the moment. People backing off, sorting out their quality modes, etc. You just focus on getting Hamilton.
Yeah, and there's no traffic around to sort.
It's a big deal. It's only a point, Crofty, but it's a big deal for everybody.
Points make prizes, Martin.
There's 21 of them available. 21 points is like a second position plus.
Absolutely.
In the end, if you got them all, of course.
Honda's last podium, Rubens Barrichello at the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix. Verstappen's last podium at Albert Park hasn't happened. Will it be second or will it be third for the Dutchman this afternoon? We have just a few more miles to go as the local fans cheer. The drivers blasting past. Martin Brundle is on his way down to interview today's race winner, which at the moment is looking like Valtteri Bottas. But joining him down in Parc Ferme, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. In what order, Paul di Resta? I do not know.
I need that point, Bono.
So strap mode 10 is available, Lewis.
So Hamilton's going for a fastest lap. On board with Pierre Gasly. I swear Paul is next to me. Hello, Paul.
This point is mega, isn't it, Crofty? Everybody fighting for it. It's amazing. 21 points at the end of the year, and Verstappen does another purple middle sector.
If I was Valtteri Bottas, I'd just think about the win from here on in.
I think if I was Bottas, I'd be saying exactly the same, and I'm surprised the team haven't said just concentrate on getting that done, because he's already put a marker down compared to where the benchmark was that Hamilton set yesterday.
Gasly goes into turn one. He is within touching distance of the rear wing of Danny Kvyat. A little wobble there going through turn two. Is he going to get interested, Gasly, once again? No. See, Kvyat's getting held up by Stroll, and that's giving Gasly a bit of a chance, but he just can't thread a way through the young Frenchman.
Yeah, that when he came out the pits, when he was up the inside of Danny Fiat, you could see, should he maybe just been a bit more aggressive, and the screen is lighting up at the moment. 3 purple sectors, each of the sectors all taken by different drivers at the moment though.
So, Valtteri Bottas is going for the fastest lap once again. Max Verstappen holds it at the moment. Pierre Gasly can't get past the Toro Rosso of Danny Fiat. Crucially, Verstappen is now within DRS range of Lewis Hamilton if he can complete the lap with the pace he's going at the moment. He needs to be within 1 second, and he is very much within 1 second. Out in front, Valtteri Bottas going for the fastest lap. There's not no one ahead of him. He can go and do that. Verstappen, though, wants to get an extra 3 points for getting past Lewis Hamilton, and we're watching Hulkenberg from Raikkonen, from Lance Stroll, 7th, 8th and 9th, and a really tight epic battle in the midfield and for the lower points places, as well as Bottas does get the new fastest lap, and we set the final start the final lap of this race for Valtteri Bottas. This has been a brilliant Australian Grand Prix. He couldn't have wished for a better race.
Crofty, I don't think we could have expected the gap between 2 teammates to have been as big as this. I mean, I don't remember the last time we saw Hamilton get beat fair and square by 21 seconds. You heard him fragile on the radio as well. Bottas has went away. He reset what he had to do and come back to the Melbourne Grand Prix, and to start the year like this, it could be a dream come true.
I promise you I'm not getting ahead of myself, but every time a team has finished 1-2 in the first race of the season, that team has gone on to win the Constructors' Championship, and the driver who's won that race has gone on to win the World Championship. But this will mean the world for Valtteri Bottas this afternoon. He's the man who started well last year but just didn't get the luck. Could have won in China, of course. Could have gone and won in Baku, where he suffered that puncture when he was leading the race. He's refreshed himself over the winter after a disappointing end to the campaign. He got 7 second places during the course of 2018. He was second on the grid to Lewis Hamilton at the start of the Australian Grand Prix. But when he sees the checkered flag, he knows that he's the number 1 in Albert Park today. It's Valtteri Bottas who wins the Australian Grand Prix, and he wins it by a distance. Lewis Hamilton battling away with Max Verstappen for second place. That scrap is still going on as they reach the penultimate corner. Sebastian Vettel ahead of Charles Leclerc by around about 5 seconds at the moment, and we'll see Hamilton cross the line as once again from pole position, it's only second for the 4th consecutive year. Hamilton finishes runner-up in Australia, and Max Verstappen for the first time ever will stand on the podium at Albert Park. What a day for Mercedes, what a day for Bottas.
There's only going to be one person in the Mercedes team that probably didn't want to see Bottas win, and that was Esteban Ocon, because he knows that's the seat he's fighting for. But everybody else will be ecstatic. I mean, to go away, reset in the winter, and come back and dominate the Grand Prix weekend like they have, Ferrari have to ask themselves questions. I get the feeling that Maranello tomorrow morning is going to be working extra hard and extra hours.
That debrief might go long into the night here, of course, though. Sebastian Vettel stays ahead of Charles Leclerc, who closed up, and then it rather looked like he was given the instruction to back off, young man.
It was crafty, but look, Verstappen on the podium. First race, Honda powered. We've got the top management here from Aston Martin. We've got the Honda guys here. It's going to be a very happy team.
Well done, Valtteri. You won the 2019 Australian Grand Prix. Great job, bravo.
How about that? Yeah! Thank you, guys.
Well, that's payback from last year, Valtteri.
New engineer, first race, you win it. It's a bit of luck there, isn't there? Tony Ross obviously stepping aside.
Riccardo Mosconi, the new man for Valtteri Bottas. Maybe that's what he needed, a change of luck. I saw him before the race today. He was smiling, he was calm, as he always is. He looked very much like the picture on your screen at the moment as he's voted driver of the day. And I said, you up for this? Oh, yeah. I said, you go and win? He went, oh, yes. And he believed in himself. Last year, there were times he didn't believe in himself. He's come back a different man.
It's very different, the first Grand Prix to when we get to the mid-season, but it was textbook, wasn't it? Didn't put a foot wrong. And to hear he wanted to be aggressive, to win the race, 26 points. They gave him the tools, and he's delivered. And I think there's going to be one very happy. I think Toto Wolff will actually be delighted, because he's backed Valtteri right from the back.